There are significant new developments in the mysterious death of 18-year-old Nolan Wells that we want to talk about tonight.
Two piles. Every claim in this case goes in one of them. Pile 1. Things that can be checked. A photograph has a date buried in it. A document is either genuine or it is not. Rolling Stone checked a photo and found it was taken on the 27th of June, not the 5th of July. Mississippi's commissioner checked a toxicology report and called it fraudulent, per WLBT. Pile 2. Things that cannot be checked by anyone outside the investigation. What was said on a boat. What a person was thinking. Every claim that has collapsed was in Pile 1. Every claim still standing is in Pile 2, and that is not the same as being true. Who does the checking in public? Not the police. At least, not yet. The district attorney has said every piece of evidence stays sealed until it is presented to a grand jury, per NOLA.com. So while the investigation runs in private, the public record is being built by other hands. Take the pool photo. It was shared as though it had been taken before 1 a.m. on the 5th. Rolling Stone traced that image, and the trace landed on the 27th of June. A different day. A different gathering. That check was done by a magazine, not a lab, not an agency. A newsroom, working the way newsrooms work. Now the toxicology report. The one that was supposed to be the answer. Mississippi's Public Safety Commissioner, Sean Tyndall, examined it and said it was fake, per WLBT. Likely AI-generated, he added, a state official, in his official capacity, telling the public that the document they are passing around is not a document. Then the family connection. A viral post claimed Nolan Wells was related to Ida B. Wells, the journalist. Michelle Duster, a verified descendant of the actual Wells family, said there is no historical or genealogical evidence for it. The person who would know checked it. No match. And the audio. The enhanced clip that people say contains certain phrases. Authorities have not confirmed its authenticity, and a digital forensics expert could not corroborate the phrases people report hearing, per Catal and News Nation. A forensics expert, someone whose whole job is deciding what is actually on a recording, could not find what the crowd heard. So the pattern is holding. Every claim that can be tested has failed the test. All of them Pile 1. But here is where the pattern stops. The two findings that matter most, the ones about the body, came back without an answer. The state's own autopsy was finished by the 31st of July, per WLBT. The results have not been made public. They are going to a grand jury, and the district attorney has said everything stays sealed until then, per NOLA.com. The examination the family paid for came back undetermined pending investigation, per ABC News and CNN. Two findings. Two sets of professional examiners. Same word, undetermined. Not a cause, not a conclusion. A pause. So who else is producing findings in this case? The United Cajun Navy, a volunteer search organization, issued a report placing Nolan's last independently verified sighting between 3:23 and 4:27 that afternoon. Per TMZ, that report is not an official finding. Volunteer work. Useful. Not authoritative. More than 60 statements have been taken. 60 people. None of their statements published. The FBI's involvement on the data traces back to who owns the island. All three companions from that afternoon have been questioned. So think with us about what the public record actually holds. A photo that failed its check. A toxicology report that failed its check. A family claim that failed its check. An audio clip no expert can corroborate. Two autopsies that say, undetermined. And 60 witnesses whose words are sealed. Here is the strange part. The claims that got traction online were the ones with a name attached, a photo, a report, a family tree, and those are the ones that broke. The claims still standing have no name, no document, no date. Just a boat, 3 friends, and a 64-minute gap no one has filled. And that gap is the whole case right now, because the only people who can fill it are the 3 friends who were on that boat. They have been interviewed, and they have been getting death threats, per WWL and the GRIO. The FBI is investigating threats against them, and against officials working the case, per Live Now from Fox. So the next thing you hear about Nolan Wells will come from one of 2 places, a grand jury, or another anonymous post. One is evidence. The other is noise. And right now, the noise has a target. Start with the phrase that defines this whole story. Undetermined pending investigation. Those are the words the family's independent autopsy came back with, per ABC News and CNN. In plain language, the pathologist examined Nolan's body and could not say what killed him. Not yet. That's not a verdict of innocence. It's not a hidden conclusion. It's a pause. The body didn't give them the answer. Now the state's autopsy. The district attorney has said all evidence stays sealed until it's presented to a grand jury, per NOLA.com. You've heard that phrase before, but what does it actually mean? A grand jury is a group of citizens who meet in secret. They listen to prosecutors present evidence. They decide whether there's probable cause to charge someone with a crime. They don't decide guilt, they don't decide innocence, they just decide if the case is strong enough to move into a courtroom. Until that happens, the public gets nothing from the official file. That's not unusual. It's not a red flag. It's the ordinary machinery of a criminal investigation. But there is one piece of this case that is not sealed. It's a number, the United Cajun Navy, a volunteer search organization, not a law enforcement agency, issued a report placing Nolan's last independently verified sighting between 3:23 and 4:27 that afternoon, per TMZ. And the state's own GPS data from the Mississippi Department of Marine Resources, obtained by CBS News, shows the boat from that trip left Horn Island at approximately 4:31. Those friends have been interviewed by investigators, per the sheriff's office. They have not been charged. No one stands accused of causing it. In the eyes of the law, they are witnesses. But in the eyes of the internet, they've already been tried. The GRIO and WWL report, they've received death threats. The FBI is investigating threats against them and against officials working the case, per Live Now from Fox. One friend's attorney has sent a cease and desist letter. That is the real-world cost of the noise. Each of those things had a name, a document, a date, and each of them failed, because none of them could be verified. Verification is the line between evidence and noise. These fall on the noise side. So what's actually left? A timeline with two hard points. The boat left at 4:31. The last verified sighting is a window that ended no later than 4:27. And after that, the official record goes silent. Nolan Wells, 18 years old, disappeared on that July 4th trip, and his body was recovered on July 6th, per CNN and Deluxe. The autopsies say undetermined, or sealed. More than 60 witnesses have talked to investigators, but none of their statements are public, per sealed. The FBI is helping with digital evidence because Horn Island sits on federal land, according to Sheriff John Ledbetter. That's the whole official picture. And there's a hole in it big enough to change the shape of the case. The GPS puts the boat at 4:31. But GPS does not track people, it tracks the boat. Nothing in the public record confirms who was standing on that deck when it pulled away. The last independent confirmation places Nolan somewhere on Horn Island before 4:27. After that, nothing. No confirmation, no sighting, no official word. So the question that sits underneath every rumor, every leaked document, every theory, the question nobody in the public record has answered, is this. Was Nolan Wells on that boat when it left the island? That question meets a wall the moment you put it next to the evidence. Every forensic finding has a limit. Not a flaw, a limit. Learning where it ends is the only way to use it honestly. Start with the enhanced audio. KTAL and News Nation report that authorities have not confirmed its authenticity, and a digital forensics expert could not corroborate the phrases people say they hear. That's the whole finding. The expert didn't declare it a fake. The expert said the phrases could not be confirmed. There is a difference. An unconfirmed phrase is a sound, not a fact. Now the toxicology report. Public Safety Commissioner Sean Tyndall said the version circulating online was fake and likely AI-generated, per WLBT and front-page detectives. A fake document proves nothing. It doesn't prove harm, and it doesn't prove innocence. It's just noise with a letterhead. The autopsies carry their own limits. Their own pathologist reached no conclusion. Undetermined, pending, per CNN and ABC News. Those two words, undetermined, pending, mark the exact spot where the examiners stopped. They could not establish a cause, not yet. WLBT reported it finished on the 31st of July. They go to a grand jury. One autopsy says undetermined, the other says sealed. Both are boundaries. Keep in mind when those exams happened. The independent autopsy was completed on July 22nd and 23rd, per ABC News and CNN. The state autopsy was finished by the end of July. 2 exams, 2 chances to answer the public. Neither one has yet. Then there's the GPS. CBS News obtained data from the Mississippi Department of Marine Resources, roughly 4:30, and the boat is gone. That's a solid fact. And here is its limit. GPS tracks a boat. It does not track a person. 4:31 tells you when the vessel moved. It doesn't tell you who was on it, who wasn't, or how that was decided. For that, you need a sighting. The last independently verified sighting of Nolan comes from the United Cajun Navy's report, a volunteer organization's document, not an official finding, per TMZ. It falls inside a window between 3:23 and 4:27. 3:23 to 4:27 is 64 minutes. That's the entire independently confirmed slice of Nolan's day, and the boat left at 4:31, so the closest those 2 moments can come is 4 minutes. It cannot be closer. After that window, the public record has no eyes on him, not empty of events, empty of verification. The witness statements are no different. Sheriff John Ledbetter says his office has interviewed more than 60 witnesses, per Tomlocks. 60 people. And none of what they said is public. Not one word of those interviews has been published. The remaining 3 from the boat have each sat down with investigators. Interviewed is a status. It is not a charge. The death itself has produced no charge. That's the record, per CNN and NPR. And the evidence itself is sealed. The district attorney has said all evidence stays sealed until it's presented to a grand jury, per NOLA.com. Sealing is a legal procedure. It controls when you get to see something. It does not tell you what the something shows. So stack the limits. Audio unconfirmed. Toxicology, fake. Independent autopsy, undetermined. State autopsy, sealed. GPS, boat, not boy. Sighting, stops at 4:27. Witnesses, 60 people, 0 published words. Charges, none. That is the whole public record, and it is smaller than the case. Here's the thing about a small record. It cannot convict anyone, and it cannot clear anyone. The silence runs both ways. A limit is not a clue. It's just a line you can't cross yet. But a line can be crossed, not by the evidence, by a claim. And when a claim crosses that line, it stops being a finding and starts being a story. That's the other pile. And that pile is exactly where every claim that can't be checked is waiting. We're going to sort it now. Now we sort. Not by what feels true, by what can be settled. Start with the photo. A crowded pool party, shared as though it was taken before 1 a.m. on July 5th. Rolling Stone traced that photo to Saturday, June 27th. Not July 5th. June 27th. That is a settled claim. And once it's settled, it changes everything around it. The image cannot serve as a verified sighting of Nolan that night. It was a different day. It was a different date dressed up as the night in question. So the timeline stays exactly where it was. 3:23 to 4:27. Independently verified. Nothing more. A false claim doesn't shrink a mystery. It just makes you clean up the mess before you can see the actual record. But the photo was only the first thing to collapse. Then there was the toxicology report. It spread across the internet like it came from the state lab. Mississippi Public Safety Commissioner Sean Tyndall examined it and said it was fake, likely AI generated, per WLBT, not inaccurate, fake, a document that was never real. Here's why that matters for the rest of the case. The examination closed at July's end, per WLBT. Its results have not been made public. They are going to a grand jury. So the toxicology report the public was holding was a fabrication. The real result is still inside a sealed file. The fake didn't reveal anything. It replaced an unknown with a lie. And when you remove the lie, the unknown is still there. The case didn't get clearer with that fake report. It got noisier. The fake report was not the only false story wearing a real name. Someone posted that Nolan Wells was related to Ida B. Wells, the journalist, the civil rights pioneer. It sounded meaningful. It gave a victim a famous ancestor, but Michelle Duster is a verified descendant of Ida B. Wells, and she said it plainly, per reported coverage. There is no historical or genealogical evidence for the link. That claim is settled. It is not true. So what does that change? Nolan Wells was 18 years old. He disappeared during a boat trip to Horn Island on July 4th. His body was recovered July 6th. That's the actual frame, per CNN and WLOX. He is not a footnote in a family tree. He is a person. When a false story attaches a famous name to a victim, the victim shrinks. The story grows. Sorting the piles puts his name back where it belongs. Now the second pile, the one that cannot be settled. The enhanced audio. People have listened to it. People report hearing specific phrases, but authorities have not confirmed the recording's authenticity. And a digital forensics expert could not corroborate the phrases people say they hear, per Kaytal and News Nation. That is not the same as calling it fake. It is not a debunk. It is a gap. The audio exists. What it contains, no official source has verified. That means it cannot be used as evidence, and it cannot be dismissed as a lie. It just sits there, in the record, unsettled. And this is where the sorting starts to cost something. Because the unverifiable pile isn't harmless. It has consequences. Officials used Newsweek to ask for restraint rather than theories. Their point was that public theorizing actively hinders the file. Think about that. Not might slow things down. Could hinder. When a claim can't be checked, it still takes up space. It still pulls attention. It still asks investigators to answer for a sound that no expert can confirm. The verified pile is small. The speculative pile is loud, and the people inside the case are the ones who hear the noise. So here's what the settled claims actually did. They cleared the table. The June photo, the fake toxicology, the false family link, they all removed something that was never really there. And the unverified claims, the audio, the rumors, they didn't get removed. They just got set aside, in a pile nobody can open. That pile is not empty. Already, it has drawn a response. The harassment has followed them since this went national, per ABC News and WWL. One friend's attorney has sent a cease and desist. The FBI is investigating threats against the witnesses and the officials, per Live Now from Fox. The unsettled pile isn't just noisy, it's active, and the people at the center of it are still here. That's who we follow next. Here's what comes next. It is not a leak, a rumor, or a post you can scroll past. It is a process, a slow one. The district attorney says all evidence stays sealed until it is presented to a grand jury, per NOLA.com. That's the next door in this case, not a press conference. Not a viral reveal, a grand jury, a closed room where prosecutors present the evidence and a small group of citizens decides whether charges are justified. Everything else is noise, until that room exists. And the record they will see is larger than anything circulating online. Sheriff John Ledbetter has put his office's witness count above 60, none of it published. More than 60 accounts, sitting in files the public has not seen. The FBI is assisting with the digital evidence, Sheriff John Ledbetter said, because Horn Island is on federal land. Investigators have interviewed every one of the three who were there. That is all that has been said about them. Interviewed. And being interviewed is not an accusation. Nobody has been taken to court over how he died. Now line up the numbers, because this is where the timeline tightens. The last independently verified sighting of Nolan Wells came no later than 4:27 p.m. That time frame comes from the United Cajun Navy's report, a volunteer group's document, not an official finding. Per TMZ's departure, sits near 4:31 on state data obtained by CBS News.m. From 4:27 to 4:31 is 4 minutes, if the sighting happened at the latest edge of its window. 4 minutes. That is a very small space for a life to change, and the space may be wider. The sighting could have come earlier. The boat's departure time is an approximation. All anyone can state for certain, the gap exists, and the gap contains everything that matters. That is the honest shape of this case, a pile of verified facts, small, solid, slow, and a pile of unverified claims, loud, fast, and unprovable. The first pile is what the grand jury will weigh. The second pile is what everyone else has already weighed in on, but the second pile is not harmless. It has hurt real people. Threats have kept coming to the ones who were present, per Thagrio. One friend's lawyer has sent a cease and desist letter, and threats aimed at Nolan's friends and at officials working the case are now the subject of an FBI investigation, per Live Now from Fox. So while the grand jury waits for its evidence, real people are living inside the noise of a case they cannot answer, because the case has not finished. And at the very center of that waiting, the one who is not a witness, an official, or a personality, is Nolan's mother. Christine Wansley. What the family commission settled nothing. Undetermined, pending investigation. Per ABC News. Per WLBT, the state completed it and released nothing. They are going to a grand jury. So the next development in this case will not arrive as a post, a clip, or a rumor. It will arrive when that room opens, and the people inside it look at more than 60 interviews, a state autopsy, a GPS record, and decide what the evidence can prove. Nobody can schedule that day. Not hashtags, not commentary, not any single viral claim. And when it comes, it will not change what happened on July 4th. It will only change what can be proven about it. One caution before anyone uses this as a scoreboard. A claim landing in the second pile is not a claim that survives scrutiny. It is a claim that scrutiny cannot reach. Those are opposite things, and treating them as the same is how a rumor becomes a belief. The honest position on everything in that pile is identical, and it is boring. Nobody outside the investigation knows. Not the people saying it happened, not the people saying it did not. That will change. The state's examination goes to a grand jury. Whatever the phone holds gets read once, jointly, when a protocol exists. Interviews that have never been published exist in a file somewhere. Until then, the first pile is the only pile anybody can honestly argue about, and every item in it so far has come apart. Until then, Nolan's name sits between the piles. The false claims have been cleared away. The unverified ones are still loud, and his mother is still here, waiting for the one answer no post, no audio, no photo can give her. That answer is the next chapter of this case. And when it finally comes, it will belong to her.